Hello folks, today we're looking at the 10 slowest depreciating electric cars. This is according to an article from Darren Moss on the WhatCar website. Shopping for an electric car but worried how much it'll be worth when you come to sell it? Well, buy one of these and you can rest easy, according to Darren. Fully electric cars accounted for 16% of all car sales in the UK in 2023. They are obviously using estimated figures for a lot of this because, you know, number one's the Lotus Eletre, or whatever it's called, and that's not 3 years old yet. So they're looking at 3-year resale value on 36,000 miles, and the full list price. Obviously, in the real world, you might be able to get yourself a discount on some of these cars rather than pay the full list price. Probably not on this one, to be fair. I don't really know. And then they sort of estimate what it's going to be in 3 years' time. So number one is the Lotus Eletre, price drop of £45,500 over 3 years with 36,000 miles on it. Starts off at 120 grand, becomes 75 grand. Number two is the VW ID Buzz. Right, I can already see an issue with this one. It's the Life Pro 77 kilowatt hour. List price on it's £59,000. 3-year resale value at 35,750, which gives a price drop of 23,285. Very, very recently, just in December, VW started putting large discounts on these, and there were some incredible 2-year lease deals. So I wouldn't disagree with the numbers here, if that hadn't just happened. But as that has just happened, I think this is going to be much lower. I've got a second video coming up very soon, actually. My mate's just got himself an ID Buzz on one of those 2-year leases, and I'm going to run through the numbers for you and give my sort of opinions on that. However, this is the Life Pro model, which is 59 grand. I would imagine you could probably pick one of those up brand new for more like 50, 52. If you shopped around, it would be a pre-reg, I'm sure, but you know, 52 grand versus 59 is a decent saving, is it not? 36,000 3 years, 35,750. Well, in 2 years, we know the market's going to be flooded with all these ID Buzz cars that people have had on these extremely cheap leases. And that's going to have a massive effect on their resale value, I would imagine, because whenever there's more supply than there is demand, prices go down. That's just how it happens. So 35 grand, I think, is very, very hopeful on that. I think that's probably going to be more like maybe 28. Who knows? I don't. It feels to me like it's going to depreciate by more than 23 grand in 3 years. Only time will tell. Number three is the Audi Q4 Sportback e-tron. 45 Quattro S-Line, 55 grand for one of those new, all by the shouting. Resale value 32,925, price drop of 21,755. That car has got a really good range for an Audi, which I think is probably one of the key factors in EV depreciation, is how good the range is, really, because range is getting better and better all the time. And that's the thing, where a car with a good range now in 3 years might not look so good. Next, the Tesla Model Y. This is the rear-wheel drive version, so it's the one I've got, the one my business has got. And list price 44,990, resale value 26,900, 18 grand it costs you to have for 3 years. I think that's more or less right with Tesla, unlike with some of the other brands. You know, we do have previous data to look on. We do have history to look at. And, you know, we've seen what's happened with the Model 3. We've seen what's going on currently with the Model Y. There are loads of them around, but I don't really disagree with that. I got mine for 42, by the way, because I got a pre-reg, and I think a lot of people will do that. So maybe it'll be slightly cheaper than we're looking at here. Number five is the Nissan Ariya, which is quietly a brilliant EV, I have to say. I was really, really surprised by how good that was. When the Ariya arrived on my drive for review, I expected to be kind of satisfied with it, probably, but not surprised, and I really was surprised. It's a very, very good car. This one's the Engage 87 kilowatt hour version. About 44.5 grand is the list price. Resale value on it after 3 years with 36,000 miles, 26,150, giving you a price drop of 18.5. Has got a decent range on it, but as they point out here, it can only charge at a maximum rate of 130 kilowatt, which is slower than as they say, the Genesis GV60, and the Tesla Model Y, which is a rival to it because they're similar size cars when all is said and done. BYD Dolphin, another really surprisingly good car, I have to say. That's the active 44.9 kilowatt hour version, retains 57.3% of its value. 26,000, the list price 15,000 after 3 years. BYD's very, very new to the UK, so I think that one's probably a little bit of a finger in the air job, because it's difficult to really judge what a company is going to do when they don't have that sort of previous record, that history in the UK. Number 7's the Jeep Avenger. I still haven't driven one of these, but by all accounts, they're a little bit disappointing from what I've heard from one or two people. But I shouldn't judge because I haven't driven one, as I said. First edition 54 kilowatt hour, 36.5 grand list price, 3-year resale just under 21, so it loses nearly 16 grand. Number 8's the Kia Niro EV. This is the 2 trim. Kia, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 generally, and then like GT line or whatever after that. List price 37,295. List price £37,295. 21 grand after 3 years, so that's dropped by just over 16. It's a really good car. The Kia Niro does everything you could want from a car, let alone from an EV, really. Decent range, 285 is the official range on it. The Kia Hyundai Group cars seem to be fairly sort of true to their range. Probably in the real world it's going to be more like 250 if you're running the aircon and everything else. The MG4 is next. This one's the SE, which is the base level one. 27 grand for one of those new, 15 grand after 3 years. That's a good car at 15 grand, I have to say. That will look decent value at 15 grand if that indeed does happen. So the official range on that's 218 miles. The long range, as I say, is not too much more, and it gets you 281 miles. My experience is with those range numbers in the MG4 is that they weren't very accurate at all. But your mileage may vary quite literally. So worth having a look into that on the forums if you're sort of seriously considering one. Number 10's the Cupra Born. This is the eBoost V3 77 kilowatt hour, list price of 41 grand, 22 grand after 3 years. I think it might drop a tiny bit more than that, simply because it's basically an ID3, and the ID3 has dropped a bit more than that. So they're saying it's going to drop by £18,855. I dare say you'll be able to get one of those for 20 grand in 3 years, but let's see. A little bit more interesting design than the ID3, but obviously the same car at heart. And that's the end of the list. Any surprises in there for you? Which cars do you think are going to depreciate the worst electric vehicles at the moment? Obviously, we know about things like the Corsa, which has lost its shirt. I think with all this depreciation and with the EV quota, you know, companies this year need to sell 22% of their vehicles as zero emissions vehicles. So that means fully electric or hydrogen or something. I think we're going to see new prices becoming a bit more sensible, because let's face it, some of the new prices of electric vehicles have been just plain daft. When you look at one point, you know, you would spend 4 grand less on a Corsa than you would on a Tesla Model 3. Ooh, come on. So there's work to be done there, but I think we'll see new prices getting a little bit cheaper in relative terms anyway, and that will have a knock-on effect on the used values, obviously. For me personally, I still think the best way to get yourself into an EV is to lease it. You're protecting yourself against sort of advances in technology. You've also got a bit of peace of mind should there be massive changes in the market. But I think I might have mentioned that before. With EVs, I think it's a case of lease a new one if you want a new one, and buy used. Lease new, buy used, I think is a fairly decent rule that won't set you far wrong. But obviously, your money, make your own decisions. Thanks for watching this one. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Please leave a comment, and I'll catch you soon.